Well, joining us now to discuss this a bit more is Baroness Nicky Morgan, who served in the Conservative government as both Culture and Education Secretary, and she's representing her party today. Good to have you with us. Just saw John Craig there, love it. It's kind of moving parts, I love it, on the set of the Politics Hub. But back to kind of serious issues here, Nicky. How damaging is this betting scandal for the Conservatives?
Look, it's clearly been a very difficult couple of weeks, and I'm on record having said I wish the Prime Minister had taken a decision sooner. I think the right decision has been taken today, and I understand that Conservative HQ checked with the Gambling Commission before announcing to make sure that actually their action wasn't going to prejudice any investigations by the Gambling Commission. I think that is important. But I think as your clip there showed, unfortunately, these kinds of stories, because they're relatively simple to understand, you know, people betting on an election result. We've seen, as I say, now this rather odd story about the Labour candidate in Suffolk betting on his own political demise, which seems very, very odd. You know, people, of course, will internalise this and think, well, actually, hang on a second, is this what I want to vote for? And I think you're as you captured there, Sophie, this is an election campaign. There are serious issues facing the country, facing the world. And, of course, all this time spent talking about these issues is frustrating for those, including the Prime Minister, who want to talk about bigger issues.
You know, Rishi Sunak made a big pitch, didn't he, when he came into number 10 on the steps of Downing Street, saying he wants to have a government of integrity. Is this why it's so damaging? Because people will look at this and they'll think, these guys, it's just one rule for them, one rule for everyone else.
Look, I think that's probably right, and I think people do make, draw conclusions and just think, well, you know, that's a very odd thing to do. I mean, I think as John was saying, you know, if you have some prior knowledge of something, most people wouldn't rush off to the bookies to put a bet on them. And to be fair, I think most Conservative candidates or ministers would never do something like this. And my understanding is, and you know, Tim will perhaps know more, but you know, people are incandescent. Those who are knocking on doors for hours a day, delivering leaflets, stuffing envelopes, doing all of that, are incandescent that a few in the party have really made life so difficult for the Prime Minister and others over the past fortnight.
The campaign, let's be completely frank, is looking pretty bad for the Conservatives, isn't it? Are we now in the territory where the Conservatives have given up on winning, really, and it's all about trying to stop a supermajority?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there is a point to be made, which is I don't think the British public would want a government to have a huge majority. I don't think it's good for democracy. I don't think it's good for holding a government to account. In my book, you never give up until 10 p.m. on polling night because...
An eternal optimist in that case, yeah.
You have to, look, in politics, you have to be an eternal optimist. And I know a number of elections. And, of course, this comes down to constituencies. You know, it's not... Although we're seeing the polls done on a big national basis and the swings here and there and everything else, it comes down to individual constituency campaigns. And I have seen campaigns won by literally a handful of votes from people who have been got out of their houses late in the day. But, of course, after 14 years, I think it is always going to be a challenge, no matter who was in power and what the campaign was about, to persuade people to give you, you know, another 5 years in power.
It's interesting you say there that after 14 years it was always going to be a battle. And I'm particularly thinking, I guess, about the more recent chaos, I think is probably a fair word for, you know, the Conservative Party, changes of leader. We had Boris Johnson, the Partygate scandal, we had Liz Truss and the mini-budget. Do you feel a bit sorry for Rishi Sunak? Is he kind of carrying the can for the mistakes of his predecessors?
Look, I think Rishi Sunak is in a difficult position, and I think all those people in the party... I sat next to Rishi Sunak when I was in Cabinet. He is a fair-minded, thoroughly decent person, and I think having worked his socks off, and I think that he will be deeply frustrated, as will those around him, by the conduct of others, which actually have made, you know, this campaign last couple of weeks so very difficult. But actually, knowing Rishi Sunak, I don't think he'll want anybody's sympathy. What he wants is the opportunity to get out, you should say, potentially drawing a line under what's happened the last couple of weeks and just saying, actually, this is who I am. These are the points I want to make on immigration, where the Rwanda policy is about deterrence, on tax, where actually he wants to cut tax, on making sure that we build on our education reforms, for example. You know, all of those
talking
things.
about those, of the education reform.
Well, I wish I would love us to talk. Well, I would love us to talk more about education.
It feels a bit like he did his conference speech about it, then forgot about it.
Well, I think the difficulty is that there are a few
You agree
issues...
with that, don't you? Let's be honest.
Well, I think there's always a few issues that people that really resonate with voters, and education is one of those ones that actually it's a bit more of a longer conversation. And but I'd love us to talk more about education and about skills and everything else, because I think those are critical issues that people do want to hear about. But I go back to the point. The trouble is, the more you're talking about, things like betting, the less you're talking about the issues that people really want to hear about.
You were first elected in 2010.
Yep.
The last time there was a kind of major change of the party in power. What's your advice to Keir Starmer if he does end up, in number 10? If, and I know you're still fighting to win, you're an optimist, you say, but what would be your advice to Keir Starmer, coming in 2010? What does he need to do?
Well, the first piece of advice is don't listen to an outgoing Tory former minister. But assuming that he did want to take any advice from me, I think that the thing that government really needs, and Downing Street departments, is very clear leadership and a very clear sense of what the first, whether it's 100 days or 3 months or whatever it might be, you actually want to achieve. I think the government machinery, the officials are dedicated. They want to do the right thing. They'll have been scouring manifestos to give advice to incoming ministers about how they deliver on their programmes. And so actually, that the person at the top setting that tone is very important.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you this evening.